Hello, my dear friend. Welcome back to Super English Talks, the channel where we don't just learn English, we also learn how to live better, think smarter, and become stronger in every part of our lives. I'm so happy that you're here today because this episode is about something that can truly change the way you live and think. It's about being proactive. Now, that word might sound simple, but trust me, it's one of the most powerful habits you can ever develop. So, let me start with a small question for you. Are you the kind of person who waits for things to happen? Or are you the kind of person who makes things happen? Take a moment to think about it. When something goes wrong, what's your first reaction? Do you quickly blame other people, bad luck, or the situation? Or do you stop for a second and ask yourself, okay, what can I do about it? That small difference between waiting and acting is the heart of being proactive. And that's exactly what we'll talk about in this episode. What does it mean to be proactive? In our daily lives, it's very easy to forget how much control we actually have. We wake up, check our phones, rush through our day, and sometimes feel like life is just happening to us. Maybe your boss gives you more work. Maybe your teacher gives you a surprise test. Maybe your plans fall apart at the last minute. And in those moments, it's so easy to say, well, what can I do? It's not my fault. That kind of thinking is called a reactive mindset. A proactive person, on the other hand, sees the same situation and says, it's not perfect, but what's my next move? That's the beauty of being proactive. It's not about controlling everything around you, because you can't. It's about controlling yourself. It's about understanding that you always have a choice. You can't control the weather, but you can control your attitude. You can't control how other people behave, but you can control how you respond. That's what makes proactive people different from the rest. What we'll learn in this episode. In this episode, we're going to take our time and break everything down step by step. First, we'll talk about what being proactive really means and how it's different from being reactive. Next, we'll explore the mindset behind proactivity, how proactive people think, and what they believe about themselves and life. Then, we'll talk about why it's sometimes hard for us to be proactive, even when we want to. Finally, I'll share some real-life examples and practical tips you can start using today to become more proactive in your studies, your relationships, and your personal goals. A moment to reflect. Before we go deeper, I want you to pause for a second and think. When was the last time you felt stuck? Maybe you wanted to start something new, but you waited for the right time. Maybe you waited for someone to motivate you or give you permission. But what if that right time never comes? What if the person you're waiting for is actually you? That's what being proactive is all about, not waiting for life to give you chances, but creating them yourself. You are in control. As you listen to this episode, I want you to keep one powerful idea in your mind. You are not just a passenger in your own life, you are the driver. You get to decide where you're going, how fast you move, and which direction you take. Once you understand that, everything begins to change, your confidence, your habits, and your future. So take a deep breath, relax, and open your mind. Because by the end of this episode, you won't just understand what being proactive means, you'll know how to bring it into your everyday life. This is Super English Talks, and today we're learning how to code a new mindset. The mindset of action, growth, and responsibility. Let's dive into understanding proactivity. All right, my friend, now that we've set the mood and talked a bit about why being proactive is so important, let's go a little deeper. Let's really understand what proactivity means and what it doesn't mean. Because here's the truth. A lot of people have heard the word proactive, but not everyone really understands it. Some people think it means always being busy, working nonstop, or trying to control everything. Others think it means being bossy or pushy, always telling others what to do. But that's not what being proactive truly is. What proactivity really means. Being proactive means taking responsibility for your life. It means you don't just wait for things to happen, you make them happen. A proactive person doesn't sit around hoping for good luck or perfect timing. They take action before problems appear. They plan ahead, prepare, and do their best to create the results they want. In simple words, proactive people don't just react to the world, they help shape it. They focus on what they can do, what they can change, and what they can control. The opposite of proactive, being reactive. Now, let's look at the opposite side, being reactive. A reactive person waits for something to happen first and then decides what to do. Their behavior depends on what's going on around them, the weather, people, or problems. Let's look at a few examples. Example 1. A rainy morning. Imagine it's Monday morning. You wake up and it's raining outside. A reactive person might say, "Ugh, it's raining again. My whole day is ruined." They let the rain decide how they feel. But a proactive person says, "It's raining. Okay, I'll take my umbrella and leave a bit earlier." The situation is the same, it's still raining, but the attitude is completely different. The proactive person doesn't give the weather the power to control their day. They take control of their mood and their plan. Example 2. Learning English. Now, think about studying or learning English. A reactive student might say, "I'll study only when I feel motivated." Or, "I'll practice speaking when I find someone to talk to." They wait for motivation or the perfect moment. But a proactive student says, "I'll make a plan. I'll practice a few minutes every day even if I don't feel like it." They don't wait for motivation. They build it through action. And that's why proactive learners improve faster. They don't wait for perfect conditions, they start where they are, with what they have. Example 3. Friendships and relationships. Let's look at one more example. Imagine you have a misunderstanding with your friend. A reactive person might think, "If they don't text me first, I'm not going to text them." They wait for the other person to act. But a proactive person thinks differently. They might say, "Maybe my friend is busy or upset. Let me message them first and clear things up." They take the first step to fix the problem instead of waiting for it to disappear. This attitude doesn't just make you stronger, it also makes your relationships healthier, your mind calmer, and your life smoother. What proactivity is not. Now, let's clear up a common confusion. Being proactive doesn't mean being aggressive. It doesn't mean controlling every little detail or forcing others to do things your way. In fact, proactive people understand something very important. Some things are simply outside of their control. They don't try to control other people's opinions, feelings, or decisions. Instead, they focus their energy on the one thing they can control themselves. Their thoughts, their choices, their actions. Example 4. Working with a team. Let's take another example. Suppose you're part of a team preparing for a big presentation. One of your teammates isn't doing their part. A reactive person might say, "This always happens. People are so lazy." They complain and get frustrated. But a proactive person asks, "Okay, what can I do to help the team succeed anyway?" Maybe they decide to talk to the teammate, organize a short meeting, or take on a small extra task. Instead of wasting time blaming others, they use their energy to make things better. That's the power of being proactive. You don't waste energy on problems, you invest energy in solutions. Proactivity and emotional control. Proactivity is also closely connected to emotional control. When you're proactive, you realize that your emotions don't have to control you. You get to choose how to respond. For example, If someone criticizes you, you have two choices. You can react immediately, get angry, and say something you'll regret, or you can pause, breathe, and respond calmly. That small pause, that short moment before you speak or act, that's where proactivity lives. It's the space between what happens to you and what you choose to do about it. And inside that space lies your real power. The key difference. Life gives us endless situations every single day: traffic jams, delays, arguments, surprises. We can't control most of them, but we can always control how we respond. And that's the key difference between a reactive life and a proactive one. Reactive people let life happen to them. Proactive people make life happen for them. Reactive versus proactive. The power of choice. Reactive people let circumstances decide their happiness. Proactive people decide it for themselves. That's a huge difference. And here's something interesting. Proactive people aren't born that way. No one comes into the world naturally proactive. It's not a personality trait. It's a learned skill, something anyone, yes, anyone, can develop. It all begins with one simple thing: awareness. Once you start noticing how often you let outside events control your mood, your thoughts, or your behavior, you can begin to change that pattern. It's like you're learning to reprogram your own mindset. And since this podcast is called Super English Talks, you can think of it like this. Being proactive is like coding your life with better instructions. You're telling your brain, don't wait for perfect moments. Create them. Don't just react to everything. Choose wisely. That's what being proactive really means, choosing your response instead of letting life choose it for you. So, when you hear the word proactive, think of it as a mindset of choice. It's about choosing responsibility over excuses, action over waiting, growth over comfort. And remember, being proactive doesn't mean being perfect. It's not about having total control over everything. It's about doing your best with what you have, right where you are right now. A simple reflection. As we move forward, I want you to think about this question. In what areas of my life am I being reactive? And how can I start being more proactive there? Because awareness is the first step toward change. Once you see the difference between reacting and choosing, you can start to live that difference, one small, intentional action at a time. The mindset behind proactivity. Now that we understand what being proactive looks like, let's go a little deeper. Because proactivity doesn't just start with what you do. It begins with how you think. Every action begins with a thought. And the biggest difference between a proactive and a reactive person is found right there in the mindset. How you think about life. How you think about responsibility. How you think about control. Let's start with a simple but powerful truth. You can't control everything that happens to you, but you can control how you respond to it. You've probably heard that before, but it's one of the most powerful lessons you can ever learn. The reactive mindset. A reactive mindset says things like, I can't help it. It's not my fault. Things just happen to me. People who think this way often feel powerless. When something goes wrong, they look for someone or something to blame: the weather, other people, bad luck, or life. They wait for life to get easier instead of learning how to get stronger. The proactive mindset. A proactive mindset, on the other hand, says, I can choose my response. I may not control everything around me, but I control myself. This mindset is full of growth, responsibility, and confidence. People who think this way understand that while life isn't always fair, they still get to decide how to act, how to feel, and what to focus on. And that's where their real power lies, not in changing the world, but in changing themselves. The space between stimulus and response. This idea was beautifully explained by Stephen Covey in his famous book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He said something incredibly powerful. Between what happens to us and how we respond, there is a space. And in that space lies our freedom to choose. Let's pause on that. Life throws something unexpected at you. Maybe a problem, an argument, or a disappointment. And right before you react, there's always a tiny space, a short moment between the event and your reaction. That's the moment when you can pause, take a breath, and decide. That small pause is where a proactive life begins. A real example. Let's make this more real. Imagine you're stuck in traffic on your way to an important meeting. A reactive person might start shouting at other drivers, honking, or stressing out about being late. They let frustration take over. But a proactive person thinks differently. They say to themselves, "Okay, I can't change the traffic, but I can call ahead and let them know I'll be late. Or maybe I can use this time to breathe, relax, or listen to something positive." The traffic is the same, but the experience is completely different because of the mindset. The proactive person doesn't give their emotions or circumstances the power to control them. They take that power back. The core message. So, remember this. You can't always choose what happens to you, but you can always choose how you respond. That's the difference between being reactive and being proactive. And that difference, that little space between reaction and choice, is where your strength, peace, and growth truly live. The power of a proactive mindset. When you build a proactive mindset, something amazing happens. Every challenge starts to look like a lesson. Every problem becomes a possibility. And every small decision becomes a chance to take control of your story. That's the real power of being proactive. It doesn't just change what you do, it changes how you see the world. It starts in your mind, and once it grows there, it transforms everything that follows. Why many people struggle to be proactive. So now that we understand what being proactive means and the mindset behind it, let's be honest with ourselves for a moment. If proactivity is so powerful and life-changing, why don't more people do it? Why is it so hard to take action, even when we know it's the right thing to do? The truth is simple. Everyone struggles with this sometimes. We all have moments when we wait too long, hesitate too much, or let opportunities slip away. And that's okay. The goal here isn't to feel guilty. It's to understand why this happens, so we can move forward with more awareness, confidence, and courage. 1. Fear of failure. One of the biggest barriers to being proactive is the fear of failure. We often hold ourselves back because we're afraid of not doing things perfectly, of making mistakes, or of being judged. Think about it. How many times have you said something like, "What if it doesn't work? What if I fail?" That small question, "what if?" can stop you from even starting. But here's the thing, proactive people fail too. The difference is, they see failure as part of the process, not the end of it. They know that every mistake brings a lesson. Every wrong step teaches them something new about what does work. They move forward, learn, adjust, and grow stronger. A personal story. Let me share something personal with you. A few years ago, I wanted to start a new creative project, something that felt meaningful. I had the idea. I had the plan. But I kept waiting. I told myself things like, "I'll start when I feel ready. I just need a little more time to think." Weeks turned into months. Then one day, I saw someone else launch a similar project, and it became really successful. I wasn't angry at their success. I was frustrated because deep down, I knew I could have done it too, if only I had acted sooner. That moment taught me an important lesson. Waiting for the perfect moment often means missing the real one. The perfect moment myth. Maybe you've been there too. You've told yourself, I'll start when I'm ready. But somehow, that day never comes. We wait for the right time, the right mood, or the right situation, but here's the truth. There is no perfect moment. The perfect moment is the one you choose to begin. Being proactive doesn't mean you never feel afraid. It means you act despite the fear. It means you move forward even when your mind says, wait. Because the truth is, action creates clarity. And every time you act, fear loses a little bit of its power. 2. The trap of perfectionism. Another big reason people struggle to be proactive is perfectionism. We tell ourselves that everything needs to be perfect before we start. The perfect plan, the perfect timing, the perfect confidence. But perfectionism is a trap. It keeps you planning instead of doing. It makes you believe you're not ready yet. And the more you listen to that voice, the further you move from your goal. Proactive people think differently. They understand that progress is more important than perfection. They focus on getting started, not on getting everything right. Because once you start, you learn, you adjust, and you grow. But if you never start, you never grow at all. 3. Lack of confidence. The third reason many people struggle to be proactive is a lack of confidence. A lot of people don't act because deep down they think, I'm not good enough. Other people are smarter, stronger, or more talented. But here's the truth. Confidence doesn't come before action. It comes from action. You don't wait to feel confident to start. You start, and that's how confidence grows. Think about it like this. The first time you tried speaking English, it was probably scary, right? But the more you practiced, the easier it became. Confidence works the same way in every area of life. It's built one small brave step at a time. The proactive way forward. So yes, being proactive can be hard sometimes. You'll feel fear. You'll doubt yourself. You'll be tempted to wait for the right moment. But remember this. Every time you choose to act, even in a small way, you take back a little bit of control over your life. And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Your fear gets quieter. Your confidence grows. And you start to realize that you were capable all along. Building confidence through action. Every time you do something small, even if it's scary, you build a little more trust in yourself. It's like training a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. Proactivity grows from that same kind of inner strength. Each small action tells your mind, see, I can handle this. And that self-trust becomes the foundation for bigger, braver actions later on. The truth about motivation. Another quiet but powerful barrier is waiting for motivation. This one is incredibly common. We often tell ourselves things like, I'll do it when I feel ready. I'll start when I feel motivated. But here's the secret. Motivation doesn't always come first. In fact, it's often the result of taking action, not the cause. Think about it like lighting a fire. You don't wait for warmth to start the flame. You start the flame to create warmth. It's the same with motivation. You start doing something, even a little bit, and then the motivation follows. Proactive people understand this. They don't sit around waiting for inspiration to magically appear. They start, and the inspiration comes later. The emotional side of proactivity. Sometimes, the struggle isn't about motivation or planning, it's emotional. We all have days when life feels heavy, confusing, or uncertain. The world feels too big, and taking action feels risky. It's natural to want to stay in your comfort zone, that safe, familiar place where nothing challenges you. But here's the truth, comfort zones don't help us grow. Growth happens when you take a small step into discomfort. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary for your progress. Every time you stretch yourself just a little beyond your comfort zone, you grow stronger and more capable. The role of environment. It's also important to understand that your environment can shape your mindset. If you spend a lot of time around people who complain, blame others, or always find excuses, you might start doing the same, even without realizing it. Being proactive often means breaking that pattern. It means thinking differently, even when those around you don't. That's not easy, but awareness is always the first step. Awareness is power. When you start noticing your own reactive habits, like waiting, blaming, or hesitating, that awareness alone is already a victory. It means you've stepped outside the pattern and started observing it. You've become conscious of it, and that's where real change begins. Remember, everyone struggles with this. Even the most proactive people have moments of fear, doubt, or hesitation. The difference is, they don't stay stuck there. They remind themselves, I have a choice. I can move. I can act. I can try again. And you can do the same. Small steps, big change. The goal isn't to become perfectly proactive overnight. That's impossible and unnecessary. The goal is to take small, consistent steps toward taking more responsibility for your actions, your emotions, and your future. So if you've been waiting to start something, maybe a new project, a fitness goal, or improving your English, ask yourself honestly, what am I really waiting for? Is it the right time? Or is it the right mindset? Because sometimes the only thing standing between where you are and where you want to be is that tiny step you keep delaying. Awareness means growth. Remember this, awareness is not about guilt, it's about growth. Recognizing your fears, your perfectionism, or your waiting habits doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. And once you see those patterns clearly, you can start changing them. Little by little, choice by choice, day by day. That's how you build a life that's not reactive, but proactive. A life where you don't just wait for things to happen. You create them. The power of taking initiative. And that brings us to the next part, the power of taking initiative. How small, intentional actions can completely change the course of your life. Because once you understand that you have the power to start anytime, anywhere, you stop waiting for opportunities and begin building them. The power of taking initiative. Now that we understand why people often struggle to be proactive, let's talk about what happens when you finally decide to take action. When you stop waiting and start doing. This is where the real magic begins. Because being proactive isn't about big, dramatic moves or sudden life changes. It's about the small, simple actions that build momentum over time. And here's the truth. Those small steps, the ones that seem almost too easy to matter, are often the ones that make the biggest difference in the long run. What it means to take initiative. Taking initiative means you don't wait for permission. You don't wait for perfect timing. You don't wait for someone else to go first. You decide to move, even if it feels uncomfortable. Even if you're unsure. Even if you don't have everything figured out yet. It's that small voice inside you that says, I'll try, instead of, maybe later. And that one small decision, to try, can change everything. Small steps, big impact. When you start taking initiative, your life doesn't transform overnight. But it does begin to shift, quietly, slowly, moment by moment. Let's make that real with a simple example. Imagine you want to learn English fluently. You keep telling yourself, I'll start when I have more free time. Or, I'll study when I feel ready. Weeks go by, then months. And you still haven't started. But one day, you decide to take initiative. You listen to a short English podcast. Or read a few sentences from a book. Or speak out loud for just 10 minutes a day. At first, it feels small. It might even feel useless. But if you keep going, every day, step by step, one day you'll look back and realize how far you've come. That's the quiet, steady power of initiative. It's not about doing everything. It's about doing something. The same rule applies everywhere. It's the same in every other area of life. Let's say you've always dreamed of starting an online business, but you keep waiting to feel ready. You tell yourself, I need more experience. Or, I'll start when things calm down. But that perfect time never arrives. Then one day, you take the first small step. You do a bit of research, write down some ideas, or talk to someone who's already done it. Suddenly, things start moving. New opportunities appear, and you realize something powerful. The hardest part wasn't the work itself. It was starting. Initiative in everyday life. Taking initiative doesn't always mean taking big leaps. Sometimes, it's something simple and quiet. It might be sending the first message to reconnect with a friend you haven't spoken to in years. It might be volunteering to help with a small project at work. It might be choosing to wake up just 10 minutes earlier. To plan your day with intention. Each small decision adds up. Each one builds momentum. And momentum is what keeps you moving forward, even when motivation fades. Because motivation comes and goes. But momentum, that steady movement forward, turns small efforts into big results. Action brings clarity. A proactive person understands this. They don't wait for the perfect plan or the perfect confidence. They start with what they have. Maybe they don't know all the answers yet, and that's okay. Because every time you take action, you learn something new. Every small step gives you feedback, builds your confidence, and makes the next step easier. There's a saying I love. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. That's exactly what initiative is all about. You might not know where your path will lead. And that's fine. You don't need to know everything before you begin. You just need to begin. Over time, those small steps connect. And what once felt impossible starts to feel natural, even easy. Clearing up a common misunderstanding. Before we go further, let's clear up something important. Many people think taking initiative means being busy all the time, saying yes to everything, or constantly pushing yourself to do more. But that's not true, and that's where we'll go next. Because real initiative isn't about doing everything. It's about doing the right things. With intention, clarity, and purpose. Taking initiative isn't about doing everything. Taking initiative doesn't mean doing everything. It's not about working nonstop, overloading yourself, or trying to control every situation. In fact, truly proactive people are usually very smart with their energy. They focus on doing something meaningful, not everything possible. They understand that progress is about direction, not speed. You don't have to move fast. You just have to keep moving, step by step, in the right direction. Focus on what truly matters. For example, if your goal is to improve your English, you don't need to study for 5 hours every day. Even 15 minutes of focused, consistent practice can make a big difference over time. If your goal is to build stronger relationships, you don't need to meet everyone or talk to everyone. You can simply reach out to one person, listen, connect, and make that relationship meaningful. Small, thoughtful actions done regularly are far more powerful than rare, perfect actions done occasionally. Consistency beats intensity. Always. Action builds confidence. And here's another beautiful truth. Taking initiative builds confidence. When you act even in small ways, you start proving to yourself that you're capable. You stop seeing yourself as someone who just reacts to life, and you start seeing yourself as someone who shapes life. That's an incredible feeling. You begin to trust your own decisions. And that trust gives you courage to do even more. Think of anyone you admire in business, education, art, or life. None of them got where they are by waiting for things to happen. They took initiative. They started when things were uncertain. They didn't have all the answers, but they began anyway. They failed, learned, and kept going. Their success wasn't built in one big, lucky moment. It was built through many small, consistent actions. Your first step matters. So, let me ask you something. What's one small step you've been thinking about taking, but haven't yet? Maybe it's starting a course. Maybe it's sending that one email. Maybe it's waking up a bit earlier to work on your goals. What's stopping you from doing it today? Not perfectly. Not completely. Just simply starting. Because once you take that first step, something inside you shifts. You feel a little stronger, a little braver, and a lot more in control. Remember this. Being proactive doesn't mean doing everything. It means doing something that moves you forward. Even if it's small, it still counts. Progress isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. The people who succeed in life aren't always the fastest or the most talented. They're the ones who keep showing up, who take initiative again and again, even when it's hard, even when no one's watching. So, as you think about your own life, ask yourself, where can I take initiative today? It doesn't have to be big. Just one small, intentional action. Because every great change begins the same way. Not with a giant leap, but with a single, brave step in the right direction. How can you be more proactive? Now that we understand what proactivity really means and why it matters so much, let's talk about how you can actually become more proactive in your everyday life. Being proactive isn't something that happens overnight. It's not a personality trait, it's a practice. It's a mindset, a group of habits, a way of thinking that you build little by little. The good news is, anyone can learn it. You don't have to be born confident, organized, or fearless. You just need to start practicing small, simple habits that help you take more control of your choices, your time, and your reactions. So let's explore a few practical, easy-to-follow tips that will help you become more proactive. Starting today. Tip 1. Think ahead. Proactive people don't just live in the moment. They also think about what might happen next. Now, this doesn't mean worrying about the future or trying to predict everything. It simply means being one small step ahead. For example, if you have an important meeting tomorrow, you prepare your notes tonight. If you know exams are coming, you start studying a little earlier instead of waiting for the last night. Thinking ahead helps you prevent problems before they happen. It's like checking the weather before you go out. If you see clouds, you take an umbrella. That small habit saves you time, stress, and frustration later. When you train your mind to look forward, you begin to notice patterns. You realize that many problems can actually be avoided, not by luck, but by simply planning a little earlier. Thinking ahead doesn't require big, complicated plans. It starts with small moments of awareness, small choices that prepare you for what's coming next. So, before you rush into your day, take a short pause. Ask yourself, what might happen next, and what can I do now to make it easier later? That's the mindset of someone who's always ready, someone proactive. Tip 2. Take responsibility. This is one of the most powerful steps toward becoming truly proactive. Taking responsibility means accepting that you are in charge of your choices and your reactions. It's easy to blame others, your boss, your teacher, your parents, or even bad luck when things don't go your way. But when you blame, you give away your power. Blaming turns you into a passenger in your own life. Taking responsibility makes you the driver again. Proactive people do the opposite of blaming. They focus on what they can control. If something goes wrong, they don't say, "It's not my fault." They ask, "What can I learn from this? What can I do differently next time?" Taking responsibility doesn't mean feeling guilty or trying to control everything. It simply means owning your part and using it as a chance to grow. Once you stop waiting for others to fix your problems, you begin to see how much power you really have to shape your life. Tip 3. Make small plans. Many people think being proactive means creating huge, detailed plans for the whole year. But that often makes you feel overwhelmed or anxious. The secret is to start small. Plan your day, your week, or even just the next few hours. For example, you could write down 3 important things you want to do today. If you're learning English, you might decide to listen to 1 short podcast, review 5 new words, and speak for 10 minutes. That's it, simple, clear, and doable. When you make small, realistic plans, you build consistency. You feel more confident because you see progress every day. Small plans are flexible too. If something changes, you can adjust easily, no guilt, no stress. And over time, these small, steady plans create big results. Remember, success doesn't come from giant leaps. It comes from many small, consistent steps in the right direction. Tip 4. Solve problems early. Here's another big one. Many people delay action because they hope small problems will disappear on their own. But most of the time, small problems grow bigger when you ignore them. Being proactive means facing issues before they turn into crises. Imagine you notice a small misunderstanding with a friend. You can talk about it early, before it turns into a big argument. Or maybe you're falling behind on a project. You can ask for help now instead of waiting until the deadline and stressing out. Solving problems early saves time, energy, and peace of mind. It also builds trust, because people see you as someone who takes initiative and looks for solutions, not excuses. Yes, sometimes it's uncomfortable to face problems, but avoiding them is always worse in the long run. So the next time something feels off, act early. Ask questions. Fix small mistakes. Take small steps to handle things before they grow out of control. Tip 5. Stay positive and take action. This might sound simple, but it's one of the hardest and most important habits of a proactive person. Life won't always go as planned. There will be challenges, delays, and disappointments. But proactive people choose to stay positive and take action anyway. Positivity isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about focusing on what you can do instead of what you can't. When things go wrong, a reactive person says, "Why does this always happen to me?" A proactive person says, "Okay, this isn't great, but what's my next move?" That small shift in attitude changes everything. When you stay positive and act, you turn obstacles into opportunities. You train your brain to see solutions instead of problems. And every time you do that, you grow stronger, calmer, and more capable. The emotional benefits of being proactive. When we think about being proactive, we usually picture action, planning, solving problems, and taking responsibility. But there's another side to it, one that's quieter but just as powerful, the emotional side. When you start living proactively, you don't just become more productive. You become calmer, more confident, and more at peace with yourself. You begin to feel a quiet strength inside, a steady voice that says, "Whatever happens, I can handle it." That feeling is one of the greatest emotional benefits of being proactive. 1. Self-trust. Every time you take initiative, even in small ways, you build trust in yourself. You begin to believe that your actions matter, that your choices have weight, and that you can rely on yourself. Think about it. When you promise yourself something and actually do it, you prove that your word has value. Maybe you said you'd wake up early to study English for 10 minutes, and you did. Maybe you finally sent that job application instead of waiting another week. Those moments might seem small, but they build a stronger relationship between you and you. Self-trust doesn't come from talking about change. It grows from doing something, from keeping the promises you make to yourself. And over time, this trust becomes the foundation of your confidence. You stop doubting yourself so much because you've seen what you're capable of when you act. 2. Confidence. Another beautiful emotional benefit of being proactive is confidence. Confidence isn't about thinking you'll never fail. It's about knowing that even if you do fail, you'll find a way to handle it. Reactive people often wait for confidence before they start. They think, I'll do it when I feel ready. But proactive people understand something different. They know that confidence comes after action, not before it. When you take initiative, even while feeling unsure, you send a message to your brain that says, I can handle this. Every small step adds another piece to your confidence puzzle. And over time, that puzzle forms a clear picture of someone who can adapt, grow, and keep moving forward. You start to feel capable in every part of your life, at work, in relationships, in learning, or in personal goals. You realize that you don't need perfect timing or perfect conditions. You just need the courage to begin. 3. Peace of mind. And then there's peace of mind, one of the quietest yet most powerful gifts of being proactive. When you take action, plan ahead, or prepare for challenges, you remove a lot of unnecessary worry. Most anxiety comes from focusing on things we can't control. Other people's opinions, the weather, luck, or timing. But when you live proactively, your attention shifts. You start focusing on what you can control, your effort, your attitude, your response. And that shift changes everything. For example, instead of stressing about exam results, a proactive student focuses on studying well. Instead of worrying about whether people will like them, a proactive person focuses on being kind and genuine. That's what brings calm, not control over everything, but clarity about what's yours to control. Peace of mind doesn't mean you never feel stress. It means you know how to respond to it with purpose and calm. In the end, being proactive isn't just a skill, it's a way of caring for yourself. It gives you the confidence to act, the self-trust to keep going, and the peace of mind to face life's challenges without fear. You stop waiting for things to happen. You start creating your own path, one thoughtful choice at a time. And that's the quiet emotional strength that changes everything. You stop wasting emotional energy on things outside your circle of control. And that creates space in your mind for peace, clarity, and balance. I remember a time when I was struggling with a personal project, something I had wanted to do for months, but kept postponing because I was afraid it wouldn't be perfect. I kept telling myself, I'll start when I have more time, or I'll do it when I feel ready. Of course, that ready day never came. One morning, I just got tired of feeling stuck. So I opened my laptop and started. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. That small act, taking initiative instead of waiting, gave me a rush of pride and relief. It wasn't just about completing something, it was about freeing myself from hesitation. I realized that action is powerful, not just because of what it achieves, but because of how it makes you feel inside. That day, I didn't just make progress on my project, I regained my confidence. That's the emotional magic of being proactive. It gives you a sense of freedom from constant doubt, fear, and waiting. You start to realize that your emotions are not controlling you, you are guiding them. Even when life throws surprises your way, you stay grounded because you know how to respond. You become calmer in chaos and stronger in uncertainty. That emotional balance changes the way you move through the world. You begin to feel lighter, more centered, and more in charge of your own happiness. Now, think about this. What would your life feel like if you focused only on what you could control? What if, instead of worrying about everything that might go wrong, you spent your energy on what you can actually do? Imagine how much more peaceful and focused you'd feel. Imagine how much mental space you'd free up for creativity, growth, and joy. When you practice proactivity, you also begin to experience more emotional stability. You stop reacting to every little problem as if it's a crisis. You learn to pause, breathe, and respond calmly. That's because proactive people develop emotional strength through repeated action. Each small decision to act trains your brain to stay calm under pressure. And that's something no one can take away from you. So the next time you feel anxious, uncertain, or stuck, remember this. The first step toward peace is action. You don't have to solve everything at once. Just do the next right thing, the one thing that's within your control. Each time you do, you'll feel a little more confident, a little more peaceful, and a lot more free. That's what emotional growth through proactivity looks like. Less fear, more calm. Less waiting, more doing. Less doubt, more self-trust. The more you practice this, the stronger your emotional foundation becomes. And soon, you'll find that being proactive isn't just something you do, it's part of who you are. Daily habits of proactive people. If you really want to understand what it means to live proactively, you have to look at it in action, not just in big moments, but in the small habits that shape your day. Because being proactive isn't something you do once in a while when life gets difficult. It's something you practice every day in simple, ordinary moments when you plan your time, make decisions, or choose how to respond to challenges. Daily habits of proactive people. Proactive people don't just talk about responsibility, they live it every day. They don't wait for motivation to appear magically. Instead, they build habits that naturally create motivation and help them stay in control. Let's look at some daily habits that proactive people use. These are habits you can start building today to feel calmer, more focused, and more in charge of your life. 1. Plan your day instead of reacting to it. Many people start their day by immediately checking their phones. Messages, notifications, emails, or other people's problems take over before the day even begins. When you start your day this way, you are letting the world decide your priorities. You are reacting to everything around you instead of leading your own life. Proactive people do the opposite. They take a few minutes to plan their day before it starts. This doesn't have to be complicated. Even 5 minutes of quiet reflection is enough. You can ask yourself, what are the 3 most important things I need to do today? What would make today a good day? Writing these things down gives you a sense of control. It puts you in the driver's seat instead of being a passenger. When you plan your day, you make better choices. You feel less stressed because you are leading your day with intention, not just reacting to what happens. 2. Set goals and review them regularly. Proactive people don't just focus on today. They think about the future, where they want to be next week, next month, or even next year. Having clear goals gives direction to your actions and energy. Without goals, it's easy to get distracted or lose motivation. For example, if your goal is to improve your English, you could listen to a short podcast every day. Write a few sentences in a journal. Practice speaking with a partner 3 times a week. The key is not just setting goals, but also reviewing them regularly. Every week, take a few minutes to ask yourself, what went well this week? What didn't go as planned? What can I improve next week? This simple reflection is like checking a map on a long journey. It helps you make sure you are still heading in the right direction. Goals give you clarity, and regular reviews give you confidence. They help you stay consistent, even when life gets busy or difficult. 3. Say no to distractions. This is one of the hardest habits in today's world. Phones, social media, notifications, and endless messages can pull your attention in many directions. Proactive people understand that every yes to a distraction is a no to something important. Protecting your time and energy is essential if you want to stay focused. Saying no might mean turning off your phone for an hour, closing unnecessary browser tabs, setting boundaries with people who constantly interrupt you. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but it's necessary. You cannot move forward if you are always being pulled in different directions. Being proactive doesn't mean ignoring people or being rude. It means choosing your priorities and protecting your focus and energy. 4. Take responsibility for your emotions and choices. This habit is deeper and more emotional, but it's what truly separates proactive people from reactive ones. Life is full of stressful situations. Things will go wrong. People will say things you don't like. Plans will fail. Reactive people often say, "It's not my fault. I can't help it. This is happening to me." Proactive people do something very different. They say, "I can choose how I respond. I am responsible for my attitude and my actions. I can focus on what I can control." Taking responsibility doesn't mean you have to control everything or never feel bad. It simply means you don't let your emotions control you. You take the driver's seat in how you react. For example, if someone criticizes you, you can either react immediately and get angry, or you can pause, breathe, and choose a calm, thoughtful response. This habit, taking responsibility for your emotions and choices, builds emotional strength, confidence, and self-control over time. These 4 habits, planning your day, setting and reviewing goals, saying no to distractions, and taking responsibility for your emotions, are the foundation of a proactive life. When you practice them consistently, you feel more in control of your day, calmer in stressful situations, and more confident in your abilities. Managing emotions and taking action. Sometimes life doesn't go the way we want. Maybe someone criticizes you. Maybe you face rejection. Or maybe things just don't turn out as planned. Reactive people often let their emotions control their actions. They get angry, upset, or give up. They let frustration or disappointment dictate what they do next. Proactive people are different. They acknowledge their emotions, but don't let those emotions control their behavior. They pause, take a deep breath, and choose how to respond. For example, imagine someone says something rude to you. A reactive person might immediately argue or get defensive. A proactive person might think, "Is it really worth my energy? How can I respond calmly and wisely?" Taking responsibility for your emotions doesn't mean ignoring them. It means managing them thoughtfully. It's about emotional maturity, having the ability to choose your reaction instead of letting your feelings choose it for you. Act even when you don't feel like it. Another key habit of proactive people is taking action even when motivation is low. Motivation doesn't magically appear. It comes through action. There will be days when you feel tired, lazy, or discouraged. We all have them. But the secret is simple. Start small anyway. You can say to yourself, "I'll just do it for 5 minutes." Once you start, your energy often follows. That small habit of beginning, even for a short time, builds discipline and keeps momentum alive. Remember, perfection is not the goal. Progress is. Every small action you take strengthens your proactive mindset. Each time you act despite excuses, you grow your self-control and confidence. A simple challenge. Here's a little challenge for this week. Pick one proactive habit to practice. It could be planning your day before checking your phone, reviewing your weekly goals every Sunday, saying no to one distraction that steals your time. Keep it simple. The goal is not to change everything at once. It's about taking one conscious step toward living intentionally. Being proactive isn't about being busy all the time. It's about taking charge of your time, focus, and emotions. It's about realizing that life happens through you, based on the choices you make. When you start practicing these habits, something amazing happens. You feel calmer. You gain confidence. You handle challenges more effectively. So ask yourself, what will your first proactive habit be? Common misconceptions about being proactive. When people hear the word proactive, they often imagine someone who is always busy, planning every moment, taking charge of everything, and never resting. But that is not true proactivity. Being proactive is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters. It's about making thoughtful choices, not constantly acting out of stress or fear. A proactive person acts with intention, focuses on what is truly important, knows when to pause, rest, or recharge energy. For example, a proactive student doesn't study all the time. They study smartly and consistently, and they also rest to stay fresh. A proactive employee doesn't try to control everything. They communicate, delegate, and trust others. Proactivity is about wisdom and balance, not speed or constant control. Sometimes, the most proactive decision is to stop, rest, and prepare yourself to perform better later. Finding balance. True proactivity means finding a rhythm that works for you. Not too fast, not too slow, like driving a car. If you go too fast, you burn out. If you go too slow, nothing moves forward. The key is to move consistently, thoughtfully, and intentionally, taking actions that matter while caring for your energy and focus. This balance is what makes a proactive life sustainable. It's not about being busy all the time. It's about being in charge of your choices, your emotions, and your actions. Balance, energy, and cultural perspectives of proactivity. Imagine driving a car. If you keep pressing the accelerator all the time without ever slowing down, you will eventually burn out. But if you are too afraid to move, you will never reach your destination. A proactive mindset is like being a skilled driver. You know when to speed up and when to take a break. You don't let life push you around, but you also don't push yourself to the edge. You understand that rest is not laziness. Rest is part of the process. Proactive people know that their energy, focus, and motivation need care, just like a battery needs charging. If you ignore your energy, you won't be able to act effectively, even if you want to. Taking care of yourself is essential to staying proactive over the long term. Proactivity is not about control. Another common misunderstanding is thinking that being proactive means trying to control everything, every event, every person, every outcome. The truth is that no one can control everything. Life is unpredictable. Things will go wrong. People will disappoint you. Plans will change. Proactive people don't waste time fighting what they cannot control. They focus on what they can control. That focus is what makes them both effective and calm. They prepare for the unexpected, adapt quickly, and stay flexible. Think of it like this: you cannot control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. That is the essence of proactivity. It's not rigidity, it's readiness. Planning for rest and recovery. Proactive people don't just plan to be productive. They also plan for recovery and rest. They understand that rest, reflection, and fun are not just rewards, they are necessities. You cannot perform at your best if you are mentally or physically drained. This means proactive people take short breaks during work. Get enough sleep. Spend time with loved ones. Do activities that refresh the mind, like reading or walking. They know that creativity and clarity often come during quiet moments, not just during busy ones. Proactivity is about maintaining your energy, not just using it. Cultural perspectives on proactivity. Interestingly, how people view initiative and responsibility differs across cultures. In many Western cultures, like the United States or the UK, being proactive is often connected to independence and self-leadership. People are encouraged to take initiative, speak up, and make things happen. In many Eastern cultures, such as Japan or Korea, proactivity is also valued, but it often shows itself through preparation, harmony, and collective responsibility. In other words, being proactive can look different depending on the culture, but the core idea remains the same: taking responsibility for what you can control, preparing for challenges, and acting intentionally. Proactivity and balance across cultures. In some cultures, standing out isn't always the goal. People focus more on helping the group succeed rather than showing themselves off. In many developing countries, taking initiative can sometimes feel risky because people fear making mistakes or being judged. But no matter where you are from, the core of proactivity is the same. It's about taking responsibility for your choices and shaping your future instead of waiting for someone else to do it for you. Balance is key. Balance is essential because proactivity can look different for every person and in every culture. For one person, being proactive might mean setting boundaries and learning to say no. For another, it might mean speaking up with confidence or starting a project without waiting for permission. What truly matters is not how much you do, but why you do it. When your actions come from awareness and purpose, you are being proactive. Even if your action is simply resting, thinking, or handling a situation calmly, it counts. Ask yourself, am I taking control of my life or trying to control everything in it? Taking control means leading yourself wisely, planning, acting, and taking responsibility for your choices. Trying to control everything means fighting reality, forcing things that can't be forced, and exhausting yourself in the process. One brings peace, the other brings stress. Proactivity is intentional, not perfect. Being proactive is not about running faster, doing more, or being perfect. It's about living intentionally, staying balanced, focusing on what truly matters. It's about understanding that rest is part of growth. Flexibility is strength. Your role is not to control the world, but to manage your choices within it. The most powerful people aren't those who do everything. They are the ones who know when to move, when to pause, and how to stay calm through both. Reflecting on proactivity. Being proactive is much more than just taking action or staying busy. It's a mindset that shapes how you approach life. It's about focusing on what you can control, making thoughtful decisions, responding to challenges with intention instead of fear or habit. It's also a practice. You build it through daily habits, small steps, and consistent effort. And ultimately, it's a way of living that allows you to guide your life rather than just react to it. Progress over perfection. Proactivity does not mean perfection. It doesn't mean doing everything at once, having flawless plans, or never making mistakes. Proactive people understand. Progress comes from consistent, meaningful action, not waiting for the perfect moment. Perfect conditions rarely exist. Life is full of uncertainty, challenges, and imperfections. The people who move forward are not the ones who wait. They start anyway, even if the steps are small or imperfect. Each step builds momentum, confidence, clarity. Proactivity is not about doing everything or being perfect. It's about acting intentionally, staying balanced, and moving forward, step by step, no matter how small the steps are. The power of taking the first step. One of the most important lessons of proactivity is this: you don't need perfect conditions to start. All you need is the courage to take the first step. Think for a moment about your own life. How often have you delayed starting something because you felt unprepared, unsure, or were waiting for the right moment? Maybe it was learning a new skill, reaching out to someone, or finishing a task that had been on your mind for weeks. The truth is that perfect moment may never come. And by waiting, you give away your power to fear, to circumstances, and to indecision. Reclaim your power. Proactive living is about taking back that power. It's about saying, I may not have everything figured out, but I can take one step today. That single step, no matter how small, is the start of real change. It's what separates people who feel stuck from those who feel capable and in control of their lives. Emotional benefits of proactivity. Proactivity isn't just about action. It's deeply connected to your emotional well-being. When you focus on what you can control, take responsibility for your choices, and act intentionally, you reduce anxiety and self-doubt. You build trust in yourself. You grow confidence in your abilities. You gain a sense of peace, knowing you are moving in the right direction. It's not about avoiding challenges or pretending life is easy. It's about facing challenges with a sense of agency. Each small decision you make helps you feel less overwhelmed and more capable. Over time, this quiet strength grows. Start small, start now. Ask yourself, what's one small action I can take today to make my life better tomorrow? It could be something simple. Sending an email you've been postponing. Practicing a skill for 10 minutes. Planning your day before checking your phone. Taking a moment to reflect on what matters most. The action doesn't have to be big. It just has to be intentional. Each small step matters. Each small decision moves you closer to the life you want to create. Over time, these actions accumulate, and you realize you've built a life shaped by your choices, priorities, and values. Make proactivity a habit. Proactivity is not a one-time act. It's a daily practice. It's about building habits, taking small steps consistently, learning to trust yourself. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Taking initiative and acting with purpose eventually feels like second nature. So, as you move through your day or week, pause and ask yourself, what's one thing I can do right now, however small, that moves me forward? Take that action. Notice the difference it makes. Feel the confidence and control it brings. Remember, every small step adds up to meaningful change. Final reflection. Life becomes richer, calmer, and more empowering when you choose to live with intention. And the journey always begins with that very first step. Proactivity is yours to practice, yours to shape, and yours to live. Start small, start today, and watch the change unfold.